Welcome to Beyond the Plate, Industry Talks by Le Cordon Bleu. In this podcast, we get some real insight into the food and hospitality industry from a variety of renowned chefs, industry experts, and Le Cordon Bleu alumni. Join us as we hear the fascinating stories and unique experiences behind some of the best-known names in the industry. Welcome. Thank you, Asma Khan, for joining us on the Le Cordon Bleu Industry Talks podcast. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. It's really lovely to have you here with us, or well, we're in your wonderful restaurant. So first of all, I just wanted to ask you about how you came to be in hospitality. What made you realise that you wanted this as your career? Can you tell us a bit about your journey?
Yeah, I think I never saw this as my career. It's just a series of kind of good opportunities, good luck, why I am here. Because 10 years ago, when I was looking at hospitality, you didn't see anyone like me.
Yeah.
You didn't see anyone like me in hospitality, in food media, anywhere. No one was talking about food that looked like me. You had white old men talking about Indian food, and that's what you watched everywhere. There was Madhur Jaffrey, who, was no longer on television, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So these were all reruns of old programs she had done. And so there was no space for me. I didn't see myself. I just wanted to cook and I wanted to feed people. And it's exactly for these reasons that I started from my own house. I started with supper clubs in my own house, and I would do the occasional catering.
Yeah.
But to imagine myself as someone in hospitality with a restaurant serving people, there was no question. I was just lucky that I managed to open a restaurant. But it wasn't even something that was on my trajectory because, how would I get there?
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine. So I started from doing supper clubs in my own house because that's where I was secure and safe. And then eventually when my kids protested, I moved to do a pop-up, pretty much unheard of now. At that time, for an Indian, chef or cook to go into a very posh, pub in Soho was quite unheard of.
Yeah.
There was no concept of pop-ups and, residencies. This is all pretty new. At that time, you did have Thai food in some restaurants, but that was it in some pubs.
Yeah.
And I went in, I was very unsuccessful in the beginning. People didn't want to eat my food. And there was I don't want your curry, love. It was very, very soul destroying.
Yeah.
There were days when I sold nothing. I really was a huge failure in the beginning because the mindset of people was that, you need to, I'm not going to buy your food, you're not refined enough, sophisticated enough. This is an odd thing to happen that you're in this kind of very, very trendy space.
Yeah.
Why are you here? And, people would stare at my all-women kitchen and not get it. And, it just shows how, I feel, quite proud of this journey I've made because I know how no one was even willing to, there was huge pushback. Something which I haven't talked about that much, but I'm saying this because I want people who are listening to this to know that if you face pushback, don't give up.
Yeah.
I didn't. And I continued, and then one day Faye Mashler walked in on her 70th birthday, loved the food, wrote this amazing article. And there were queues. And overnight, I was this big star in Soho where people were queuing up. You couldn't get tables. And everything changed. But I still would not have imagined that I could have moved into a restaurant. But one of the regulars in the pub who came to eat very often was a landlord of a site just behind the pub in Kingly Court. When I told him I was, my time in the pub, I wanted to leave because my kid had not done notes for his GCSEs, and I was terrified he'd fail. I'm an Indian mother.
Yeah.
I kind of quit so that I could go and help him with his notes and make sure he didn't do badly in his exams. So he said, your story's not going to end this way. There's this side. It was out of politeness and just respect for this person who was always kind to me and my team. I went to see the site. I definitely was not going to imagine that I could have a restaurant. But when I went there, it just kind of felt so right.
Yeah.
And even though I had no money, that's when the dream began. I thought, okay, I'm going to do my best. And he told me that he thinks my food is good enough, and why not? Let me try. So really, it was just, that. So it wasn't I was looking for it. The opportunity came to me.
Sure, yeah.
And otherwise, I honestly can tell you, I would not have been looking for a restaurant site. I don't know what my destiny would have been. I would have gone home, but definitely not looking for a restaurant.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate. I competed with 55 people, and I was able to get the lease, and I struggled to raise the finance. I was trying to get a business partner who turned out to be rather greedy and not so helpful, and my husband stepped in, gave me his entire life savings, life savings of the kids as well, the trust fund, and that's how I opened the restaurant.
Wow. Thank goodness it worked out.
Yeah, I mean, just because I didn't have money, and I thought that because I lacked experience, I thought it'd be a good idea to get an established restaurant person. Established restaurant person basically didn't know who he was dealing with, and tried to kind of shortchange me, and made me feel insecure. And I just thought, I'm not going into this relationship where you are made to feel like you're not good enough, and I thought this is how he is now. God knows what's going to be later on. And if something doesn't feel right to people, you should walk. Because always destiny will open another door for you. One door closes, another will always open. Do not allow yourself to be pigeonholed and pushed into a place.
It must have been quite a learning curve for you then to kind of learn the restaurant trade and also run the kitchen at the same time.
It was very hard, and we were very, very bad. People left without eating. We got orders wrong. It was a real struggle, and people were very understanding, very tolerant. A lot of people who came to the restaurant were my ex-supper club clients. Huge difference between supper club, where everybody is eating at the same time in your house. They're not different tables. They're not coming at different times. It was so tough. I made lots of mistakes, but I learned very quickly. The food was perfect. So that helped a lot. It was the same team who I'd been cooking with in my house, in the pub. So the kitchen was perfect. We just couldn't get the service correct. But soon we got that correct as well. And but it was not easy. It wasn't easy, but it was great fun. And every night when we finished service, we felt so exhilarated. We could hardly walk, but we felt triumphant. Every night ended on a note of joy. And that is how it is even today. It's still a struggle. It's still tough. There are days when it's very, very difficult. There are days when it's easier. But every day, we all feel victorious.
Wonderful. I mean, I suppose, if it's worth doing, then the hard work doesn't feel so hard.
Yeah, and it's very hard work, without a doubt, and it's relentless. But it is a lot of pressure, but I have to point out, there's no justification for violence and anger that happens in other places. It's true, it's for 3 hours you don't think you're breathing. During packed lunch service, packed dinner service, it is frantic. But in my kitchen, you will never find anyone shouting or screaming or getting upset. We just manage. There's a lot of cooperation. There's a lot of non-verbal communication. No one is screaming at each other. We're watching what each one is doing. No one shouting commands. And this is, I'm evidence of that you can actually do it this way. Screaming and shouting is the easy way. And it also says something about you as a person. If that is your way of coping with pressure, if you cannot deal with the pressure, get the hell out of the kitchen. You don't deserve to be in the kitchen. Because really, it is pressured, but there's pressure everywhere. I think primary school teachers have the worst job. There are medics and doctors who do complicated operations. There are, over pandemic, we saw heroic, people caring for the elderly and the sick and the dying. These are tough things, and people do it. So there's no excuse. Cooking and serving is a joy and a privilege, and that is, the pressure is just part of it.
We're absolutely hearing more and more that there's no space for that in modern hospitality. No one is going to take that kind of attitude from anyone in the workplace, which I think is fantastic.
And I think that for students who are studying culinary, in culinary schools, they must also be very, very clear on this. There are borders and there are lines that people should not cross, and you do not need to take the violence and anger that people in the past took. You don't need to suck it up.
No.
Because you are skilled, you are trained. This is what you've learned in school. And this is what a place like Cordon Bleu has given you.
Yeah.
It's given you the skills. You have the skill set. You've got to have the mindset and not take nonsense.
Absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit about your team now, your kitchen team specifically. So you have an all-female kitchen team, and obviously this is important to highlight, but why do you think it's still important and unusual to highlight that there's an all-female kitchen team in a female-founded business, no less?
I think it's important to highlight this because it is an anomaly in our culture. In every home you go to, in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, it's a woman who's cooking or a woman in charge. The matriarch, the female, is deciding what's happening with the food, organizing the ingredients, making sure that everybody's fed. But in every restaurant you go to, at mid-level, upper level, fine dining, in the East or in the West, they're mainly men who are in charge. And this is the difficulty, that we are still the only one, which is a female-founded all-female kitchen, as you mentioned, in the world doing Indian food. And the reason why I highlight it, not because I want to preen and show off that we are the only one. I'm highlighting it as a battle cry. I want others to join. I want women to feel there is one. I had no one to look at, to look up to. You cannot be what you cannot see. The reason why I communicate this is that I want someone else to see that we did it, that we're successful. It's been 10 years. We started off, this is 10 years of doing supper clubs. So it's 10 years and 5 years at a restaurant, and we're all still standing. And we survived the pandemic, and my team are as close as anything, and we are successful. And I had to teach myself how to say we are successful, looking at the mirror, because in my accented voice, I want people to hear, you can be me, you can be more successful than me. And I say this very often, I am not willing to die till I see women surpassing me. In every achievement I've made, in everything that I've done with Darjeeling Express and my team, I will live to see someone doing better than me, who will break every norm and shatter all these prejudices that people have. And this is something that is important in every kind of cuisine, not just mine. And I see this as a universal battle that we need to explain to everyone that I want to inspire the women, but I also want to break the barriers that I know I hit. You all seeing me and you're talking to me in my days of success.
Yeah.
You don't know when I failed. You all didn't know me when I bled, when I hit these barriers. And I did. And this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make sure that the women coming after me, whose breath I feel behind me, don't even see it. This is very important. This is why having this conversation with you and talking about the fact that it's an all-female kitchen and that I'm a sole female founder. This is important, not just to highlight Darjeeling Express, but to make people understand that this can be common, this can be everywhere, and it should be everywhere.
Absolutely. I mean, I've had a long time of just seeing a very similar face, especially on television. I think television is the worst for it.
The television is terrible.
Yeah.
Television is terrible, and they have no excuse why they do not, look at more diverse faces, diverse voices, get women, who are black, who are Asian, who are, from different heritages to talk about their own food, instead of shipping off some famous stale male, pale guy to, my country. I'm nothing against these guys, Let them tell these stories, let them cook my food. Go ahead. But, you present not the food of my people, because you're not going into homes, you're not talking to women, you're not, you're presenting this all singing, all dancing, colorful, exotic food, which we are more than that. But that is because you do not understand my culture. You're scratching at the surface. And that's what people think we are.
So, in terms of gender and diversity, gender equality and diversity, do you think a corner is starting to be turned, or is there a really long way to go still?
No, of course, I think the corner is being turned. I think that there is a change. Unfortunately, I think that people have come back from the pandemic not as they should be, more humble and more keen to be more diverse. I'm hearing terrible stories about, smaller groups, but women, especially older women, because everybody suddenly was aware of how tough it is to have kids at home. Because all these men, those who have kids understand, and I think that they're just wary of women, because I'm hearing that women are not being rehired. And we are still in this situation where people are, of course, and now, with the war, with the price hike, with all the instability that's being in just not just supplies but prices. The price of fuel has gone up. Everyone is locking down into this kind of save mode. Essentially, in this kind of mode where people are more wary, people are less likely to be open-hearted, egalitarian, diverse, looking at more political issues of why you should be hiring someone. This is a risk. So I think the pandemic has not been helpful, but I'm still optimistic that people will, when things get a little better, people actually remember how important it is to be equal, to be fair, to be just, and to break the bias. It is really bias because there's so much self-selection. So unless you're the Ritz, you don't have an HR department. Most restaurants work in a very small, tight team. People are struggling to find staff. So you don't have this whole process of, of induction and training and, what you did have before. So someone comes in and they're thrown into the deep end, and people just are picking people as if they're picking a football team. No one's playing. It's as if they're playing Mortal Kombat, So they pick these kind of people who they think are tough, strong. And invariably it's a man picking a man who they think are tough for the job. You are not in some video game. This is about service, and this is about, empathy and a team builder and working together and cooperation and collaboration. And, unfortunately, people are seeing this as a battleground. And that's the problem, that women lose out because people see women as weak, physically weak, not so committed, or she's going to end up having babies. You have really, really prominent, people who look up to male chefs who have gone on record. And I don't want to name him, but I did write an article challenging him, but he didn't respond to it because he said, we don't want to have women in the kitchen because they get pregnant. And when they're pregnant, they can't lift heavy pots. And this was said by one of the most worshipped male chefs in this country. And not a single female chef who has a Michelin star, who is considered, a high-end female chef, commented. I was the one who dragged him to the floor and asked him, what kind of kitchen do you run if women are lifting pots the whole day? And, for the short period that someone cannot lift a pot, you are willing to write her off. And no one responded. This is a really, really shocking thing about this industry, that women who are successful, their silence is deafening, who are successful in hospitality. You might see yourself as a world-renowned chef, and you don't see yourself as a woman. I'm sorry. You must speak up for your own. This is very, very important. And this is really about this networking, a nexus of people who are in hospitality, who are all, got each other's back and don't speak up. It is shameful. And, and where there have been evidence of bullying, and chefs have lost their jobs, and there's been evidence where I was the only one who wrote an article about how unfortunate it was that these girls had to go through this level of sexual harassment, because the initial reaction of the owner of the restaurant was to make that chef an executive chef and then argue that this was not a promotion, And everybody, all the male chefs lined up on social media to say, oh yeah, being from a head chef to an executive chef is not a promotion. It was done there so that he wouldn't have physical contact with women in the kitchen.
Wow.
That is our industry. Eventually, and I'm so sad that I was the only one who wrote a newspaper article, and I set off a campaign. That chef was made to leave, and those women were in any case asked to leave, who had made the accusation. And so it's not our finest hour. This time that we have seen the silence, I wait to see the next scandal. There's been one very recently where sadly I was the only one again who spoke. And I asked Michelin why they were still giving a star to a chef where there was accusations of bullying. Eventually Michelin replied to me saying, oh, it's very hard for us to monitor. This is just, there's no excuse for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the thing is that I'm waiting for others, for their voices to join me. Of course, you do not expect those that are being bullied and the weak to speak up. I understand his stuff. I expect the powerful to speak up.
Yeah.
They are not. So at some point, people will be brave. Men and women. We need men and women to speak up. This has to be a joint effort.
Yeah.
So that we actually are a respectable profession. At the moment, I'm not so sure.
It's really shocking stuff, and it kind of makes you feel very sad. But conversely, we see so many promising young women coming through our school, and throughout the pandemic especially, and after, there are so many entrepreneurial, young women starting up their own businesses, and if they've not been able to find a conventional pathway into hospitality, they've made their own. And so I guess the hope is that the next generation of chefs, female and male chefs, are going to kind of make that change.
I hope so. I see the change is the youth, is the younger people who are coming into this profession, who have the skill sets, as I mentioned before, who have the confidence that I hope that schooling and courses, would give that person. And they go set the world on fire. They should do that, because that is the change. Because if the doors are closed to you, you set up something on your own. How long will you keep knocking? And once you're through there, if you're treated badly, you won't stay. And I started a very unconventional way. My story is very, very unconventional. But because I don't owe anything to anyone, I'm the heckler. I will challenge everybody. And and I'm a lawyer. So if someone wanted to take me to court for comments that I make, where I talked about how unacceptable they are and how they reek of patriarchy like stale fish, to a chef who was very, very sensitive, very thin skin. I waited, but no, he decided not to sue me. I would love my day in court, because the kind of comments they make, it's so derogatory, so unacceptable, and they get away with it, but not till I'm alive. No.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to dare take you to court, Asma. So let's talk a little bit about how hospitality has changed since the pandemic. Obviously, people are now kind of readdressing their work-life balance. Have you seen that kind of had an impact in your business?
Yes, for me, I'm very lucky. My team, has stayed with me when we closed, and they've come back. I'm very proud of this kind of huge sense of commitment to Darjeeling Express. But I know with others that during that closure, many went on to do other things. Some even starting their own kind of food business. And in this fresh open air, away from the extractor and the being in a basement kitchen, often never seeing sunlight and sunshine, because you went in early in the morning, you did a double shift, you came back at night. I think we have lost quite a lot of people who have gone on. Some are still doing food in different ways, and I think the fault is ours.
Sure.
We didn't protect them and look after them in the good days. Of course, when we had the bad times, everybody has suffered. But the reason we have a shortage, of course, The first reason is Brexit. We didn't even acknowledge that the backbone of hospitality, especially in London, were Eastern European workers, young people who came in, who actually had incredible skills. Maybe not everyone spoke great English, but they came in because they'd already worked in their mums and pups restaurants. They had just different ethos. And I can say this with absolute authority. British people, British kids do not have that drive to work this hard. I'm sorry. And, Spanish, French, German, Portuguese, young kids who came in just had so much passion for hospitality. It was just remarkable, but we just used them as cannon fodder. And these kids came in with no social life, no network. The restaurant or the cafe or the bar where they worked in was their life. They were always willing to work longer shifts, they were willing to do more. They were often willing to do unpaid work. So we just, as hospitality, we used them, we've lost them, and there was no attempt by the government to actually set up a training system. This is a lot of skilled workers who are now going to replace the skilled workers we just thrown away.
Yeah.
Zero. And obviously everyone is now looking for staff. This is very unhelpful because there's a desperation everywhere. People are closing for lunch. On a Monday, in this whole area, you will not find a single restaurant open. People are rationalizing how many, shifts they can do. And the burden on those staff, for those who are lucky enough to have staff, there's a huge burden on them because they're going to burn out. Because, there is this pressure on them that, you can't give them the breaks that they need, you cannot give them the holidays they need. They're working much longer hours than maybe they would want to emotionally, and they're also working longer hours than physically they should.
Yeah. And
it doesn't help that we've still got COVID around. People have had that impact of COVID. It's still there, it comes and goes. Very, very difficult time. But again, all the conversation that you are hearing is about, how expensive it is to hire staff. We're having to pay them more. And, talking about the price of fuel. Why are we not talking about the mental health of the staff we have? Why are we not talking about teams? Why are we not talking about compassion and solidarity? These conversations are not happening. We're just talking about how expensive it is now to hire staff.
Yeah.
Why are we not talking about what are we doing to support them? What are we doing to attract the people we lost?
Yeah.
Why? And especially, for my industry, which is, Indian food, why are we not talking to housewives? Why are we not talking to women? All these curry houses are talking about, what a disaster, we cannot get staff. But you go home and you eat the most incredible food, cooked by your mother and your wife or your sister. But she's not good enough to come into the kitchen. It's absolutely shocking. All these conversations are not happening. And what everyone is doing is they're complaining about pricing.
Yeah.
And how hard it is to find staff. Be nice. Be good to them. I don't have a problem staffing. I pay them well. I don't pay minimum wage. I don't steal their service charges. They all get the London living wage. You can't survive in London. The basic minimum wage is not adequate.
No.
Then on top of that, all service charges should be given to them. We look after them. We take care of them. Unfortunately for us, we've had 3 staff who've had bereavements in their family. I've paid for all the funerals. I've paid for them to fly back. When they are giving me the best days of their lives and are here with me, instead of being with their family, if there's a problem, morally, I must look after their family. I don't understand why hospitality, where there are 2 words linked to our industry, hospitable, service. We're neither. We don't look after our own people. We only look after the paid customer. That is so wrong. But this is how we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly why people are not coming back, because they know they can do better, they can get treated well elsewhere, and it's so easy to just kind of do the right thing.
Yeah, but there's no conversation about these things at all, anywhere. Just talk about how expensive it is to hire people.
Yeah, it's all about that money.
Yeah.
So just lastly, I want to talk a little bit about what your predictions and or hopes are for hospitality over the next few years, in any kind of capacity, whether that's, what trends you want to see emerge, or just exactly what you want to eradicate from hospitality altogether?
I want to reply to this with all the positives.
Great.
I would like to see a closer link between ownership, management, and staff. The thing is that too many restaurants, especially in London, the owners are faceless men, venture capitalists. A lot of Russian money was there in the past. People investing in restaurants often as a way to come and get visas, because you got, the golden visa, you put in 2 million. So a lot of that, and this distance between management and staffing, the staff and the team needs to be put together. So what I would like to see is more of this kind of collaboration, the idea that we're all together, less separation between people, more compassion, more communication. So I would like to see that change in our industry, where there would be this more feeling that we're all in together. The day any restaurant, the kitchen porter doesn't turn up, you are dead.
Yeah.
But does everyone know the name of the kitchen porter? What tribe he came from Ghana? Our kitchen porter, he makes plantains for us every week. He cooks. And he says, these are my sister, I cook for my sisters. Because we keep giving him biryani to take home. He brings food from his tradition and feeds us. There's a sense that you are valued.
Yeah.
Also, I'm paid the same hourly rate as the kitchen porter, who's the hardest working person. And I'm the least hardest worker, I think, in my kitchen. I think everyone works harder than me.
Sure.
And he knows it. He knows I get paid the same hourly rate as me. So we need to just do these things. This is very, very important. This is not about, grandstanding. This is about actually, put your money where your mouth is. Pay everybody well, treat them equally, be fair, make sure that you promote people based on caliber, not on their gender, not because you find them very funny and they're great and they're fun to talk to when they're drunk. All these wrong reasons, or that you go and play football with them. This is a profession. It's a profession, and you need to show. And this kind of, the other thing that I would love to see, and I hope that this change happens, especially as we are now quite stuck, let's not have the standard roles. The pretty girl in the reception, the French sommelier, the black KP, everyone is by their color and gender assigned roles. That, let's shatter. Now that we have, have a huge shortage, I would love to see this. And my prediction is the change will happen, not for the right reasons, but for the reasons that you cannot find the right kind of people fit that role, that people will be brave and actually hire people, who wear a plus dress size at reception. Come on, do it. Your restaurant will still be running. Do not conform to this idea that, you need a slim, pretty, thin at the door when people enter. This is just, you would think, which century are we in? Where people get jobs based on what their dress size is. But that is still happening in hospitality, and we need to grow up. So my prediction is that now that we're stuck, I would also hope, although I think that this may not happen, I would like to see unionization. I want to see a union of hospitality workers. I'm very keen to start one. And I know this is odd because I'm a restaurant owner, but I would like to see, people having a form and a piece of paper which tells them what their rights are. And they should know that no one has a right to step on their dreams. No woman should allow someone to touch her without consent. That this is your inalienable right to be safe in the kitchen. So these are my dreams and hopes for the future.
Fantastic. Well, let's see. And I think it's, it's not unrealistic. We're getting there.
Yeah, no, we get there. We have to get there because we need to open our mouths and we need to work really hard. And I dedicate my life for this fight. Not because I will benefit anyway from it, but I will leave a legacy that will outlive me. That women will know that someone spoke up for them, and hopefully someone out of the next generation will be me and speak up. So this is why I do it.
Yeah, and we thank you for it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a pleasure to speak with you today, and we look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Beyond the Plate, Industry Talks by Le Cordon Bleu. Keep up to date with all our news and episodes by following us on social media or by signing up to our newsletter. Links are included in the episode notes. Until next time, a bientôt!